takes time. I think specifically regarding AI has been a buzzword for quite some time, and I think one of the key takeaways from last week, Monday, we had a $1 trillion market crash in the US markets, specifically with all companies related to AI, primarily because of a new model launch called DeepSeek. By the way, DeepSeek is available on Amazon Bedrock. But one of the key things is that nobody saw this coming. No experts saw this model being launched. And one of the key aspects about this model was that this foundational model was costing about 95% cheaper in millions compared to the $1 billion spent in other LLM models. And it just makes you wonder that predictions typically are always wrong. And for people who aren't aware of what DeepSeek is, maybe just quickly pick up your smartphones, go to the App Store, and you'll see the #1 app, both on the Android on the App Store, is DeepSeek. And coming to predictions, I think even in smartphones followed a very similar charter. I think we underestimated the impact of smartphones almost 15 years back. And it really goes back to the proverb that we tend to overestimate technology in the short run and underestimate technology in the long run. And I think EdTech and AI are following a very similar charter. I think to all the naysayers of EdTech, the fact is that the education market by end of the year is going to be $8 trillion. That's the amount of money spent in a year on education. And in India itself, we have 600 million learners. It's not possible to build brick and mortar institutions at that scale to provide affordable and accessible education to so many learners at the same time. I think, and just coming to that, right, I think specifically with AI too, nobody saw the cost of AI. I think one of the biggest issues with AI was the prohibitive cost or the ROI of AI. I think DeepSeek took care of that. And I think with that in mind, I'd probably open up my first question to one of the key panelists out here. Maybe a quick introduction from you, Ankit. And while Unstop is one of the largest community engagements and hiring platforms, how are you leveraging AI to maybe provide personalized learning to both your students and your professionals?
Sure. Thank you so much, Vishal. Good morning to everybody. Pleasure to be here. So let me just talk about some numbers and then go into how we are using AI to make sense of those numbers. Unstop today, we crossed 20 million users last week. And monthly active users on our platform is about 6 million. Now, these numbers themselves are very, very huge. But AI is only enabling us to actually get these numbers much, much higher and to create those impacts to all our users. So on Unstop, we are a community engagement and hiring platform for early talent with the students and people from 0 to 3 years. Now, how we are enabling them is essentially that the AI algorithms that we have developed are customizing their recommendations based on their behavior, based on the skills that they have, and on their career goals and aspirations. Now, Vishal, when I was doing my engineering, right, I was clueless which career path should I move forward with, right? Because as an engineer, I might be looking at maybe product, maybe data science, or maybe software development, correct? During your 4 years of engineering, if I as a platform can work with you to give you a sense that, hey, these are the skills or these are the roles that you're interested in, these are the skills that you may want to have for these roles, and we are also able to give you a proficiency level on all those skills, then you will know where you are with respect to your interest and the aspirations and what path do you want to follow to reach those proficiency in those skills. Now, those may or may not be fulfilled on Unstop, but at least we are enabling you to figure out that, boss, you were looking at software development, product, and data science. We believe that you have 5 skills out of 10 in data science, 6 in software development, and maybe 7 in product. And you have these XYZ proficiency levels. If you were to really build your career in product, this is what you need to do. Now, all of this can only be done fabulously well using AI when we have already analyzed the data of the people who are in product, who are in data science, and multiple companies, and what skills are they using. And that's how we are sort of creating these channels to ensure that every interaction that those users do on platform like Unstop is one step closer towards their career goals. And that's how we've been sort of able to sort of move forward and get to that. And Vishal, trust me, the algorithms that we have developed, all of that, I mean, predominantly are changing every week. Only because the base models are changing every week, and I'm sure at AWS you would know there have been multiple releases that happen every week, and our team is on our toes to make those models better and better every day.
No, completely agree. In fact, AI has seen such a roller coaster ride in the last couple of years, right? It's been the biggest buzzword maybe a year and a half back. It went through a downturn, and again, with DeepSeek coming in, it's probably being the big buzzword for the next, hopefully, few months too. Mahesh, coming to you, millions of students use Careers 360 as a platform. I think, Ankit, you talked about career choice, and that's probably one of the platform of choices for career choice. Give us your view in terms of how you and Careers 360 are leveraging GenAI to help students out.
So Careers essentially is a student-driven platform where we help students decide which is the college course pathways and even learning pathways for that matter. And every day about 1 million students come on the platform. They try to understand what they should do and how they must go about doing it. That's a larger thing. We were always powering this with a lot of data at the back end. And the data is essentially a filtration tool, a lot less to do with insights and a lot more to do with information. Now, what AI has done is it's also brought in insights. So it's a lot more personalized because it's now not dealing with every student with a bunch of data sets. It's now dealing with the sentiments, the aspirations, the kind of language that the student uses, the kind of level at which the student is, the kind of domains that the student seems to be interested in, and then personalize the entire journey. That's the objective. We're still not yet there. We're going to be there very soon in the next 1 month, hopefully. But for us, the larger thing about AI is that how do we dynamically optimize content? For example, we get about a few thousand questions a week on the platform. And we know that our data is not responding to quite a few of those questions. So we start creating or optimizing information, content, data to ensure that those kind of questions also are responded to. And hopefully over a period of 6 months to 1 year, we actually have most of the questions that students have in their heads, in their minds, responded to in a proper way, objectively, with data, with information, removing perception out of the window. Because one of the biggest challenges that you have in India is a lot of information out there is perception created by pushing in a lot of money behind it, right? Because obviously everyone is trying to sell something, and the student is vulnerable to a certain extent. So the thing for us is how do we move from information to insight, and how do we ensure that we keep it clean and credible so that student ultimately gets the best option out of the choices that he has around them.
I think thanks, Mahesh. And just imagining personalized learning for millions of students, right? I think again, just going back to the earlier session, right? Thousands of students and millions of students having access to something like personalized learning is probably one of the key game changers. And talking about millions, right? And changing gears to inclusivity. I think maybe coming to you, Sunil. Give us a perspective of, obviously what Rocket Learning does. It's in a very different segment, serving the unserved for that matter. And how are you in such a niche market leveraging AI?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, hi. So Rocket Learning is an EdTech nonprofit. We work with children between the ages of 3 to 6, trying to bring, equal learning outcomes in early childhood education, right? About 40 million children in India face, an unequal start because they have no early childhood education at all, right? Formal or informal, right? So we started on a mission about 4 years ago. We've reached about 10 states, 3 million children, working with about 20% of India's Anganwadi centers. So we work with the daycare centers to bring education directly to the parents, because the parents are the biggest stakeholders, have the most incentive to sort of help the children and can help at this age, right? So that's a little context about Rocket Learning. Love to chat with you more. We actually base our whole program on WhatsApp, and it's about 2-minute videos and community and group-based learning, right? So it's 10 or 12 parents in a group, and you're meant to share back responses on this group that pulls everybody else in, right? So what we've really designed for from the start is really high engagement, because as all of you know, in EdTech, outcomes only follow when engagement remains high, right, in a 3-6 month level. So we're quite proud of the fact that we've been able to, even with lower income communities, we're able to drive really high engagement across time, right? So you might be wondering, what am I doing in a generative AI EdTech talk? It's actually something that has been very, very deeply, that's something that we passionately care about, because look, especially in these early years, learning should not be linear, right? Neither should it be rote, neither should it be only of one style and fit, right? I think what you have now is an unprecedented opportunity to have personalized learning in a true way, where a child can learn through a meandering path, right? Through their own discovery, their own stories, their own wonderful, wild imaginations, right? So we've actually built a generative AI tutor that's voice-based, right? So it's just a voice buddy that a child can chat with, like they're having a conversation. I'm sure, like, many of you might still remember the first things that you learned are often from speaking to your teacher or your mother, right? Or the people around you, right? That's the joy of learning in these early ages, right? So we wanted to recreate that job, that sort of experience for the child, right? So we sort of created a generative AI-based voice tutor that can sort of, through everyday conversations, stories, rhymes that are often call and repeat, really teach a whole gamut of concepts to the children while making it fun, engaging, and personalized, right? So we really believe in the huge potential, right, of having each child have their own tutor from a very, very young age.
Thanks, and I think that just highlights tech for good. I think we always tend to give some bad names to the impact which technology sometimes has on this sector, and this is just one example where we're doing such tremendous work for the unserved. And it's amazing to hear from all the three panelists, right? Right from the age, such a young age, to right from students to even professionals for that matter. All of them, these are real life use cases of AI being currently implemented. I love that. Just going on to inclusivity and changing to a different segment, Ankit, maybe, again, given the fact that you guys work with professionals and you guys work with, students, how is your platform leveraging AI to maybe connect your learners and users to employers, to internships, to jobs? Just give us a brief implementation of that.
Now, see, on our platform today, we have more than 10,000 plus employers. And I'll tell you where the problem was happening with the employers. And that might be true for some of you. Whenever you want to hire a person at any level, specifically at the entry 0 to 3 years or so, every company wants the top talent to be hired, right? Who has scored 99%, 98% or so. That's true for all of us, right? Because that's our first go-to. We did some research, and we spoke to many of our clients, and few of them being largest Indian conglomerates. The attrition rate in most of the bigger organizations is about 60% for first 2 years when they hire a fresh grad. And 70% of all grads that get into their job market change their first job within 18 months. Now that tells us that there is a disconnect that's happening between the employer and the students as such, because not all employers can match the aspirations of the top talent, both in terms of their career trajectory as well as their monetary expectations, right? So what we did was that when we have those 20 million users, 6 million coming on a monthly basis, we are able to track their aspirations, their expectations, where they stand in those skills, to even tell them that, boss, because you're at a proficiency level of maybe 7 on 10, you might be okay getting a job with these many companies at a package of this. And similarly for the companies as well, we basically tell them to actually hire candidates who see these companies as aspirational, because then only they will stick around for them for maybe 2 to 3 years. In last 2 years, we have changed this approach, changing and benefiting most of the employers. So effectively, what we are saying is that if from this 20 million, only 1 million can actually eye for high-end, high CTC tech jobs, only those should be connected. The rest should also be connected with other companies who have the capacity to even train them from 7 to becoming a 9, and maybe at a lower CTC, so that the connections are happening in a better manner. And in the last 18 months, when we have done our own studies for the same employers who are facing the attrition about 60% at the entry level, that has dropped down massively to only about 17 to 18%. Right? And that's where I think AI is playing a massive, massive role, where we are in all transparency telling employers as well that, boss, this is the right audience for you, not 90 percentiler, but maybe 70 to 80 percentiler. And for students as well, that we believe that your best career aspirations might be matched with these kind of employers. The second aspect is, I think overall, from the AI related jobs as well, from the skill expectation points as well, when we are doing those analysis at the employer side, we are getting to know that the skill sets that the employers are also looking at is changing. They also want some AI enablement to be done even in non-tech jobs, right? If you're a, let's say, a management trainee, do you know how to use AI for your better output, right? And I think that's where the focus is also coming into the picture, in terms of, can we give them the list of candidates who are AI ready as well, whether tech or non-tech. So that's the connection that we are trying to establish.
Thanks, and such great numbers, and I love the fact that you mentioned it's like a right product market fit here, just in ensuring that the right employees get connected to the right employers for that matter, and that's so critical. Maybe shifting gears a little bit, I think Mahesh, you did talk about data, right? And having a critical data strategy is so important to having an AI strategy. How do you really move from information, raw information, lots of data, which probably Ankit's platform has millions of students using your platform, to actually getting some real insight using AI for that matter?
I think that's a very important question that AI will solve. Like, as I said earlier, we're always using information and doing a data dump of many stuff and then trying to recommend to the students. And it's largely, if you look at it, a few algorithms working rightly or wrongly, and a lot of filtration tools working, again, which would not go wrong, right? But the sentiment analysis, the aspiration of the student, matching certain things to the aspiration of the student, those things were always missing in the scheme. If you look at India as an ecosystem, you'll realize that a lot of students are very clear that they want to get into the IITs, the IIMs, the IISc, the AIMS, and so on and so forth, right? Now, that is 1% of the students. And most of the learning companies that you have would promise 5 lakh students that they will get into IITs, whereas there are only 30,000 seats. And they manage to sell it well, in a sense, right? Because they also know that 4.7 lakh students will fail, because that's how the game is, that the only 40,000 seats in IITs are 17,000 seats. And you take 5 lakh students and say that to each of the student, you say, I promise you to be there. Our job starts when their job ends, in a sense, because all the other 4.8 lakh students who could not get into the right place also deserve a right path. For us to be moving ahead as an economy, as a demography, and to the demographic dividend of this nation, it's very, very important that we ensure that we start filling in the plan B and plan C by understanding, explaining, and still managing to convince the student that, listen, buddy, you're not there. Like, for example, we all know that a student who's getting 70-75% marks in class 12 doesn't have a chance in hell to get into IITs in a certain sense, if you take a mock, right? Of course, there'll be anecdotal stories. And the anecdotal stories will become bigger and bigger by the way. But if you do a sentiment analysis and back it with data, then you know that where you draw the line of saying, I'm not likely to be here, what next for me? And start creating those plans. And those are insights which are very, very important. Because what you're otherwise doing is you're leading many students down a path which might turn to a disaster at some point in time. So for me, at this point in time, when I use AI, it's very, very personalized, extremely dynamic based on the student merit, student sentiment, student aspiration, and the financial ability of the student also, in a certain sense, or the geography in which the student is sitting. Like, for example, India has coaching institutions across the country, right? If you look at one big examination, which is medical examination, there were 566 towns and cities where the exam was held. But only in 225 there was any coaching center. So what happened to the other 335? And when you know that, and by the way, boys move where the coaching center is, the girls don't move. So you actually have a lesser success rate, even though there's more appearance of girls in certain examinations, right? Because they're not mobile enough. That's a culture, the society of the country that you're dealing with. These kind of insights are extremely important. And I'm hoping that at some point in time, the learn companies, the teaching companies, will actually deliver something which is so good that it replaces physical coaching completely. Because otherwise, as technology, we can keep talking of EdTech, we can keep talking of GenAI, we can keep talking of AI, but if it doesn't impact the other side of it. And by the way, the country that we live in, remember, the recent DICE report exactly talks of how 50% of the schools in the country don't have even a computer connection. So we're dealing with those kind of dynamics here, and hopefully GenAI would be able to fill in that space and solve some of the larger problems of the country, which will actually mean well for all of us and not just a few of us.
And completely agree. And as I said before, so while we get predictions completely wrong, it's impractical to build multiple coaching centers or thousands of institutions to train so many learners. And I think personalized learning is such a critical component to ensure that everybody has affordable and accessible education, and again, getting the right product job market fit out there. And just talking about I think smartphones did help bridge some of that digital divide, right? And I think I've always said this, that maybe the last technology that really impacted pretty much everyone in the world and billions of us is smartphones. And nobody could have, everyone underestimated the impact when smartphones was launched. And I think AI is at that pivotal moment backed by pretty much every technology company. And I'm hoping AI will be where smartphones was maybe about 15 years back. But smartphones did bridge a significant digital divide. And there is sometimes a fear element of coming in that, will AI probably make that better, as Mahesh also mentioned that out? Or will that probably digital divide only increase? And if yes, how do we remediate that, Sunil?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think, look, in EdTech, we've been impacted by GenAI rather than taking the bull by its horns, right? It's just that suddenly everybody has, access to this tool that can answer many questions, all from a chat, right? So I think it's high time that we design for GenAI in our lives, and also design in a human-centric way, design in a pedagogy-first, guardrailed way, right? So when we're thinking about these chatbots, one can easily sneer and say, look, there's no way you can create a structured path of this. But look, if you work around with system instructions and the latest models, what you'd find is that LLMs are actually quite good teachers, right? Studies from Africa are showing that children just with access to ChatGPT perform 40% better sometimes, right? So I think it's a real sea of change. But in all of this, we should also be very careful not to create an AI divide, like you saw the digital divide. It's natural for wherever we seek profit to sort of build only for the super users, right? Build for those who can pay for that extra AI subscription or the super extra features, right? What we'd then realize is that if the impact studies are right, what we wake up to is a world with even worse disparity in terms of learning outcomes, right? So we should be very careful in terms of how we're building, how purposeful we are in what we're building, and whether it's really helping all of your users and not just the super users, right, in some ways. So big believer that, look, it should be, the benefits of AI need to flow down to every single person, because often the people most affected by AI, are left behind.
Yeah, and again, as I said, right, I'm hoping, I'm always going to be optimistic around that. I'm hoping it's just going to make it easier and more affordable and more, quickly accessible. Again, I'm sorry for reiterating again, but I think predictions can always be wrong. But I would want to get a perspective, or maybe one prediction, or even one maybe wish list you probably have. I think one of the key aspects which every builder needs to ask Amazon is, what is the ROI on AI? I think that question has been addressed now to a certain extent, and the cost is going to keep coming down. The models are going to keep getting better. The cost is going to keep coming down. It's going to become more affordable. It's going to become more easily accessible. So given, the ride which we have over the last couple of weeks, maybe I'll start with you, Ankit. One wish list or a bold prediction, if I may say so, specifically on what do you wish as an educator for AI?
I'm not good at predictions, frankly.
I
But
agree.
one thing which I'm actually happy about, at least for the last 3 months that I could see, if not more, is that any advances in AI is keeping not only our technology team on toes, but we as founders and business guys on our toes as well, because we don't know within a week what change or what new product led by AI can disrupt what we are doing today, right? And that's one. The second is, because we're talking about learning or so, I just wish that the use of AI in schools, curriculums, colleges enhances the thought process and critical thinking rather than reduces it. That's my personal wish. I'm not sure how, because nowadays I was just talking to one of the IIT professors that all the projects are now AI copy paste, which they do not want to do. So I'm just thinking, how do we solve for that problem as well?
Yeah, and I think movies don't help, right? You always project a dystopian future of the impact of, Gen AI and technology. Again, Mahesh, I know you're not going to give a prediction around it, so maybe I'll ask you maybe a wish list in line with what you, Ankit mentioned for AI.
It's always easy to make a wish list than a prediction, right? So I think the important thing is a lot of people ask me whether how technology has impacted education. And I say, if there are two goals of technology, it is to make education more accessible and more affordable. And I think on affordability, we're still not there in the sense that education is more expensive since technology came in. So I think somewhere there's been a failure of technology in ensuring that education is more cheaper, right? I just hope GenAI doesn't go that same pathway, right? Because it's not just about divide, but it's actually separating a lot of people out of the system, or taking them out and dumping them outside the system. So education, and I'm not talking about everything. By the way, GenAI might have a very, very good use case in many other sectors, but education that doesn't lead to equity is meaningless. And GenAI, to succeed, must have the governments be part of it. It cannot be simply a private sector job. All of us sit here and talk of how we are changing stuff and how we are impacting lives and those kind of things. But that is extremely, extremely marginal. Unless we actually have the other 50%. For example, right now I'm fighting battle with the government saying, listen, you are talking of computer-based testing because it's transparent, but it might not be fair and equitable. And this balance between equity, fairness, and transparency and correctness has to be addressed for us to move ahead. So from that perspective, I'm hoping and wishing that GenAI, works with the governments of the day to ensure that it is equitable and fair to the entire population and not just a part of the population. That's my wish list, of course.
And I love that. I think the good part is, in Europe especially, and I think we always trying to follow regulations out there. GDPR is already accessing that, and we have an amazing topic coming up, which talks specifically around, Bharat for AI. Do stay back for that. And maybe one last question to you, Sunil. Maybe a bold prediction. Again, as I said, we do get predictions wrong many a times, but sometimes we do get it right too. right? So maybe one prediction from your standpoint.
Yeah, exuberance of youth. So I don't mind egg on my face, I guess. But I think two predictions. One is the importance of user experiences and user interfaces is going to vastly diminish. So what I'd say is don't spend too much time on where that button goes in your app, because I think the new learning environments will all be constructed by the child and generated, right? The second is that ultra-local models, right? What I mean is small models and locally made, right, for purpose built, will sort of rule the whole market. And in that, AWS has to play a big role in terms of keeping the costs down, serving us, really low latency, amazing responses at a low cost. Yeah, that's my two things.
Thank you all. I know we're short of time. Thank you all for this amazing session. I've always mentioned, at Amazon, we want to be neutral. We want to ensure that all cost-effective models are available and affordable and easily accessible to all, for that matter. If you have any questions, please feel to catch any of us, and we'll happy to answer them offline on this. Thank you so much again. Yeah. Thank you all.